Catherine Delahunty. 5-minute call.
Tēnā koutou te whare. I'd just like to start with a mihi to the Ngāti Hine and to whānau pani o Irema Hinari, moi mai I rangatira. An acknowledgement to Pine Hinari as a son of that very, very honourable whakapapa, and that we mourn today the loss of his papa. I'd also like to acknowledge that we have the Chair of the National Trust, Waitangi National Trust, with us as well, Peter Paroni, and also everyone here from Te Tai Tokerau. There's layers and layers of history associated with Te Tiriti o Waitangi, and therefore with this bill. And although it belongs to all of us, it's guarded the most fiercely, in my experience, by those of the North. And having spent every Waitangi at Waitangi for the last 15 years, except for one, I have had a real education in the passion of Te Tai Tokerau for not only for the National Trust and for the marae, but also for the other sites of significance that have been referred to tonight. The Lower Marae, Te Raurangatira, the places where He Whakaputanga was signed in 1835, all of the different aspects of the history, and there are many complex layers, and speaking about it, need to acknowledge that there are people here who, in this Parliament, who descend directly on both the Pākehā side and the Māori side, as does my colleague Dave Clendon, and others who have a much greater whakapapa relationship with the site that we're talking about tonight. I had a brief experience on the Select Committee working on the bill, and I'd like to acknowledge the Select Committee. It was a very, as always, I find the Māori Affairs Select Committee a really welcoming and positive place to come into. And at the time, there was quite a lot of debate going on when I left, after my short sojourn, on the issues of equitable representation. And so it's very pleasing to see that, once again, the Māori Affairs Select Committee has found a pathway before there is a major review, which we also support, in which the Minister Maggie Barry came and discussed very graciously with that committee. There has been a pathway for some immediate resolution as well. So our concern, some of us at that time, was really the statement which is in the bill, which is, I'm going to quote from, which is where the Māori Affairs Select Committee say, "We consider the view put to us in submission from Arapesa Hamilton that the current makeup of the board is unfair, as there is a disparity between the representation of Pākehā families, which is one for each of 3 families, and of Māori families, where there's just one member representing 4. And so, given that this is about Te Tiriti o Waitangi, there's a clear call to action in that statement. Because Te Tiriti o Waitangi, if it is to be honoured, and it's not a Māori treaty, it's a treaty that gives my culture status in this country, and my culture honour if we honour it. Otherwise, we're here as settlers and colonists rather than as citizens. It's really, really important that the National Trust Board and this law reflects that equitable issue of representation. Because if Te Tiriti o Waitangi and the documents that preceded in building of our nationhood are about anything, they're about recognising 2 sides of the story, and that there's not going to be a dominant culture. There's going to be tino rangatiratanga, this is the dream, we're not there yet, but also there's going to be honourable kawanatanga. So this bill is a really positive step forward in that regard, that the Select Committee listened to the submitters, that they were able to find a way before the broader review to recognise those issues of equity and participation, which are essential. And though there were arguments and debates at the time, again, I'd acknowledge the Parliamentary Council's office, because they also did play a positive role. They did come and say, this is within the scope of this bill. It is possible to do this at this time, because we were trying to do what was logical as well as what was right. And I think that, thanks to all parties, what has been logical as well as what is right has been achieved in this process. Oops, there's much more I could say about Te Tiriti. I can never resist speaking on Te Tiriti because I'm so passionate that Pākehā recognise Waitangi, passionate that Pākehā recognise that this place, and not just Waitangi itself, but the whole of the area where our history has taken place around that document and around He Whakaputanga, is recognised by all of us as a basis for our nation. And that it isn't a matter of taking out the story, it's a matter of learning the true history, the painful history and the right history, rather than the sanitised history that is sometimes told about what happens, not only what happens at Waitangi on the day, which is often actually completely misinterpreted by the media, but also by what this place is really all about to us. And so the Greens support any step forward which is based on equity and on the articles of Te Tiriti of Waitangi. So we're proud to support the bill. Kia ora.